everybody. Welcome to another episode of Making Sense. With me today, you'll notice I have two guests. I have Brian Milliken, who is our Chief Commercial Banking Officer. And then our special guest today is Jim Skalski, who is the Chief Financial Officer of Iracore. So before we get started, guys, I do want to let you know about the jar on the table. So it's called a jargon jar, which is kind of like a swear jar. So Jim, you might not be having to pay into this, but Brian might.
There's a good
So
chance.
what it is if Brian starts using words like a balloon payment or an APY that people just people don't know, right?
Fair enough.
We call them out, we make them pay into the jar, and we make them explain what it is.
So if we don't have any jargon payments, do we get the quarters?
No. No.
It's
don't.
a one-way transaction.
Thought there might be an incentive.
It's a one-way transaction.
One way. All right, so let's get rolling here. Jim, give me an overview of what Iracore does.
Well, Iracore just is, it has such an interesting history, and it's such a unique company, I think, anyhow. I'll go maybe a ways back on what we do, but we're certainly started in the 1950s in Hibbing, Minnesota, and in the bottom of a tire shop downtown, and it was owned by a gentleman by the name of Zenobio Valeri, so good Italian.
Yeah.
And he started this because there was a lot of wear in the mining industry, so they put rubber on parts because rubber actually wears better than steel. People have a hard time understanding, well, how does rubber wear better than steel? But it does. The interesting thing about Zenobio was that he was actually the rubber warden up in the Iron Range during World War II. And so people say, well, what's a rubber warden, and why did you have one? But during World War II, rubber was really scarce. Not only in the U.S., all across the world. And so what they did is they allocated the rubber. And, well, why was rubber so important? Because of all the mining that was done in the Iron Range. It really, 70% of the steel from World War II came from the Iron Range, just an hour north of here. Okay. Then you fast forward to the 70s, and he had a son who was educated, sent him away, and his son came back and said, hey, urethane's going to take over all rubber because it's way better. So he started a urethane company, which we still have. Okay. Fast forward the company another 20 years or so into the late 90s, and a gentleman who was really my mentor for many, many years, Dan Burks, he had worked for the company for a long period of time, and he took a look at this product, and he knew that up in the Canadian oil sands there was a real challenge for their piping up there, and rubber didn't work, and we put rubber in lots of pipe, and it works well around here. We put urethane in pipe, and it works really good in warm environments, but for some different reasons it didn't work well in the oil sands, either one of those products. And so when Dan got involved, he came up with the concept of putting a base layer of rubber covered with urethane, and we came up with our Iracore product, which now accounts for about 70% of our business on a given year, and we sell it all to the Canadian oil sands.
Wow.
So it's just it's been a long run, pretty interesting history. We have 3 shops, 3 manufacturing facilities in Hibbing, Minnesota. About 125 employees, and then we just recently opened a new manufacturing site a little bit closer to our customers in northern Alberta, with a shop in Edmonton in the last year. Okay. So.
All right, and this gentleman sitting to your left, how did you meet? Give me the love story. How did it start?
It is a love story too.
You bet it is.
So. Just my whole life, I've always tried to focus on relationships, and so this one just a unique way, because you never know how your paths are going to cross again. But John Evans, one of the audit partners over at RSM in Duluth, he knew Brian, he knew me, he knew I liked fishing, he knew Brian liked fishing. We got together to go on a fishing trip on Lake Superior. One of the interesting things, though, for me was when I got there, the captain of the boat was Brian.
Okay.
And the boat owner was Brian. So it was kind of
Falcon.
yeah. And it was kind of unique for me because even though I do a lot of hunting and fishing and anything outdoors, I had never fished Lake Superior or that type of fishing. And, this, I don't know, goes back into, early 2010, 12, 13, somewhere in there. I don't even recall the exact year. Went out, we did the guy thing, and we just had a fun time, made a relationship. And at that time, we didn't really have a banking need.
Yeah.
So it's just one of those things I just stuck in the back of my mind that, hey, someday. And it's always funny because when you have a good banking relationship, you always think, well, you're never gonna need anything. But I still stuck it back in the back of my mind.
Yeah. And then someday rolled around.
And someday rolled around. Our business kind of is very lumpy. So the oil sands, even though they're 70% of our sales, we get them in very large projects.
Yeah.
So it makes the business very lumpy, and so it makes it from your cash flow very difficult at times to have enough cash on hand. So 2017, we're actually owned by some private equity groups, and in 2017, a new group had acquired us. And going into 2018, we started looking at, hey, we got some projects out here. We need to redo some of the banking, and it was, hey, let's reach out to Brian here.
Yeah.
So.
And that's like 5 years later, kind of.
Yeah,
so that must have been like a heck of a fishing trip.
Yeah, it was.
Because you
I think we caught a few fish that day.
Yeah, I mean, we caught a few. Yeah, we did.
Because you reached out to somebody who, I mean, you probably could have picked a bank in Hibbing.
Yeah, and the interesting thing, our private equity groups tend to want to use New York-based lending, or your very large commercial lenders.
Yeah.
And I don't, because there's a high cost. They're very slow, and they're just very difficult to work with at times. Mm-hmm. And so when I was, this board was very new to me at that time, and I said, well, I want to go to some local banks. And they said, well, you can, but you're going out to these guys too.
Yeah.
And when we came back, with a proposal from NBC, I think everybody was... They were shocked, right?
Yeah.
But they didn't know me at that time, right? I thought it was going to be an easy thing to go local. They really didn't, and so they were shocked in a very good way, and have been really happy ever since.
Wow.
So.
Brian, can you kind of walk us through like when Jim called you and was like, "Hey, we need to
absolutely.
make something happen here." Like.
So, I mean, as Jim kind of summed it up, how it all started on a fishing trip, and as a commercial banker, we're always trying to build relationships and meet new people. You never know when something's going to happen.
Yeah.
And obviously it was a memorable moment on the Millennium Falcon, and we had a good time. And when Jim reached out to me, I was very excited about it, and immediately wanted to learn about the business. And I knew just based on our general conversations that there would be something that we could do for him, and put a proposal out there. So. Started gathering some information, and lo and behold, here we are today. I mean, it was good, and as you mentioned too, with like the larger banks, it's we have the capacity to do anything that the larger banks can do. We have all the products, we have large lending limits, mm-hmm. and if something exceeds our lending limits on the back end, we can partner with other banks to go above that. So our abilities are all there, and decision making, less layers, everything, all the decisions are made local, which is extremely important. I've worked at two other larger institutions, and the decisions are being made in Milwaukee or in Chicago versus everything up here. And all the executives have open door policies here, so any associate can literally walk into the CEO's office if they need to get an answer. And so the ease of that with the community banks is huge. Then again, another thing that I like about the community banks, the money's invested back into the communities. One reason why local deposits are so important. The larger institutions that are nationally wide, all those deposits go to California, Florida, other places in the state or in the U.S., and they're not necessarily invested back into the community. So, working for a smaller bank that has all the capabilities of the larger banks is great, and it just does so much for the people around, and not just the business owners, but all their, the families of all their employees. So,
yeah, kind of what you had talked about too, that I believe you said, like, sometimes, like, if you work with a larger institution, it can be slow.
Yes.
And that's, like, why, like, a local community bank can sometimes be better, because it's, like, those decisions are made locally, so we have the ability to maybe move a little faster or be a little bit more nimble, so.
I mean, even at one time when we were working with a large bank, and it might go back 20 years, but we were working with one of the large banks, there was this phantom committee where you didn't even know who the person was.
Yeah, and they don't know you.
You could talk to.
Right.
I mean, we didn't even really have a name. It was just there's decision makers in a city not near us, and
Yes.
not even a name to contact. We're here. We've been lucky. We know everybody. We meet people in the hall when we're walking down for this interview.
Yeah. Yep.
And it's a pretty nice thing.
Yep.
And one thing that we did too, which we can do because we're a community bank, is we got the CEO up there. We had different executives up there to meet the teams. We knew it was a more complicated ownership structure, so I want to make sure they had a good understanding of it as we pushed it through for approval. And every business is unique and works differently, operates differently, and just even like the background of how Iracore started. I mean, to learn all that's exciting and fun.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I maybe was going to talk about a little bit about that later, but since Brian hit on it, during the whole process, after I contacted Brian and we started working with the bank, we have the CEO on board, we got the VP of sales on board who is now Brad, the CEO.
Yeah.
We had everybody, and not only that, one of the members from the board, your board, even came up to Hibbing to take a look. He had experience in the manufacturing industry and quasi mining construction industry. He came up, and it was a really great asset. And when I looked at that, we were really impressed that you guys came in and did the diligence you did. We'd much rather have you do that so you understand our business from a very high level down. And I think it's good for your bank too. It showed us, how much your bank cared in making the right decision, even for you guys.
Yeah.
Right. So you like partners. You like smart partners.
Yep.
And it's just like hiring somebody. You always want to hire somebody smarter than you so they can make you look good. And,
Yeah.
And they've made me look good a number of times over the years. So
Awesome. So 2023, things are still going well.
yeah, and 2023, I think right now our line is about double what we originally started with. I think we started with about a $5 million line, and we're sitting at $10 million now. We've had it higher.
Hold on, Jim, I might make you pay in.
That is definitely a
That's
joke.
definitely,
Quarter
yeah.
into the-
People don't know what a line is. What's a line?
A line's like when we need some money, we say, please send it to us. No, so we have a revolving line of credit, and the revolving line of credit is based on when we're doing these large projects, we'll build up a very large amount of inventory and receivables from our customers, and it might not match how soon we have to pay all of our payables out. So we get a revolving line from the bank, and we draw on that until we can collect all of our receivables from our customer, and that's what we have from NBC. That's one of the one of the products that we
That was good.
use.
That was really good.
Yeah. You might have a future in banking.
And it's ultimately it's more than that. It's even some of the when I said that they made me look smart. At times sometimes we'll need cash.
Mm-hmm.
Sometimes we'll have a bunch of cash. And so our owner said, well, what's a high interest solution? I said, Brian, you got me a high interest solution? And
Brian, what do I say?
Yeah. and Brian comes back and says, here, I got this for you. And I'm like, oh, this is perfect. But I think probably one of the most important things was earlier this spring there was the banking crisis, a mini banking crisis that had everybody scared with some of the bankruptcies out on the West Coast.
Yep.
And some members of our board are very risk averse. I don't say that in a bad way. It's they're just very risk adverse, and a lot of the lending limits are at only $250,000 to have FDI insurance. So if you have more than that and a bank went bankrupt, somehow, some way, you'd be out your money. So I raised my hand again and said, Brian, what can we do?
We covered?
Yeah. So what can we do instead of going out to, if we had $5 million, I don't want to go out to 20 banks.
Right.
And put $250,000.
Yep.
So Brian came back and said, hey, we got this product that'll work for you. It's seamless. It all happens behind the scenes. So it's like I scratch my head and I'm like, all right, but how much is it going to cost me? And at the end of the day, it really doesn't cost anything. So it was a perfect solution, and he keeps making me look smart to my board guys, and I'm not really that smart. So when we look at all the people that we buy stuff from, most of these organizations, they're people that you like. They're people that you would want to go out to dinner with, you'd want to do something with. It doesn't mean you always have that chance to do it, but they're still the type of people you like to.
Yeah.
Maybe they're not mom and pop businesses, maybe they're a little bit bigger, but those are types of businesses that we've gravitated to for suppliers over the years. And in a way, banks really just a supplier of sorts.
Yep.
And those are the types of businesses that we've gravitated to over the years, and we've been very successful with those types of companies instead of the giant companies that might think they can offer you a lot more. They really can't. It's the people that you can do business with, and that's, so I go back with personable, can do business, just some of those simple things.
Jim, I think he might be your friend.
I would say we're friends.
I think that's that's the term we're dancing around. You guys are friends. That's awesome. Brian, do you have any last words that you would want to share with just businesses looking for lending, commercial lending needs, business lending?
Sure. You might not have a need now. You might be a new company. You might be a very seasoned company, especially like here at NBC, because we are a community bank, we have the ability to help somebody with a startup, to help some of the biggest companies out there within the communities that we serve. The biggest thing, as I mentioned earlier too, banking local, your money is local and gets invested back into local. And that's why local deposits are so important for the banks. And the relationship part of it, of working with people that you like, is very, very important, and just having a good understanding of their business, who they are, how things operate, how things work. Something here at NBC with all of our commercial lenders, we have a very knowledgeable commercial lender team, very seasoned. I think we have 14 bankers currently, and everyone's unique in their own little way, but they're all kind of their own little business. Trying to build that, and we all care, and we're all invested in the communities. We literally live and work in these areas, and a lot of people that we bank are our friends.
Yeah,
like me and Jim.
All of the bankers are looking for more friends. If people out there need a loan and a friend, just saying,
You've come to the right place.
You've come to the right place.
Yep.
Jim, anything else you want to add before we wrap it up?
Yeah, just very happy with the relationship. Obviously, I think you should have garnered that by now. If somebody's looking at doing something, and Brian just hit a little bit on it just a second ago. Don't worry if you're too small. Don't worry if you think it's too big. You don't worry if you think it's too complex. Come down and sit and let the bankers help you take care of the banking problems. You have enough problems. We have enough problems running our businesses. We don't want to worry about the banking problems. Come in, talk to them, let them, get to know your business, and let them solve the banking problems for you, so you can run your business the way you want it to.
Yeah. And every situation is unique. No business is the same. So we have the ability to literally customize every loan relationship that we do. It's nothing's the same, and that's exciting and fun, and just learning about all the different stuff out there too is what I really enjoy.
Yeah. Well, thank you to the both of you for sitting down, and I got
Thank
to
you.
learn about the rubber warden and everything about Iracore's, how they came to be, which is interesting. So I really appreciate you sitting down with us, because I know that sometimes it can be a little intimidating, but I appreciate you guys.
Thank you.
We could just keep going on for another half hour.
I know. So we'll wrap it up. We'll let them go. We'll let the friends go to lunch. But thank you everybody for tuning in. Please know also, when we wrap up the camera, we will make Jim pay his quarter in. We are going to make him do that. And we will see you next time. Thank you guys.
Thanks.